Yum, yum!
Greg here from Pixel Fondue, and in this second video about modeling with arrays, we're going to make a creepy noodle head, like creepy rice noodle head here. So this is one continuous curve all the way around the head, just wrapped from the base all the way to the top. Yeah, that's a spaghetti head, that's ramen head, and that's another shot of ramen head. All right, so creepy noodle head, that's what we're going to make, and we're going to make this by making use of arrays in modeling. And so if you haven't watched the first array modeling video where you make the sort of ball of twine, you may want to look at that because I'm not going to do the basics of arrays here. I'm just going to go right into it. So here we are in MODO, and I thought I'd give Queen Nefertiti a try on this one, and we'll give it a shot. This was downloaded from Sketchfab it was uploaded to Sketchfab by Francesco Coldesina. Hope I get that right. I will put that credit down in the description. So if you haven't been to Sketchfab, you can download other people's models from there if they allow you to. And then if you're going to use them in a free tutorial like this, you just need to give them credit. So I am doing that. And I think this is a great model to use. Looks like it was scanned and maybe retopoed. Really well done. So let's give this a shot. We can do something kind of cool with this. The first thing we need to do is make some locators. So I'm just going to press L for one locator and press L again for a second, and then L again for a third. And I'm going to name the third locator pointer, and I'm going to name the second locator, I'll just call it vertical, and the bottom locator, I'll call it turntable. How about turntable? And I'm going to parent pointer to vertical. I think I spelled wrong, but I'm not going to change. And then vertical to turntable. And I'm just going to quickly use the Ateria quick locator script or kit here just to change the shapes a little bit. So, whoops, okay, chill out. We're going to use a square on Y and make it green for the turntable. And then for the vertical one, we'll just do, how about a circle? We'll do a circle on Z, and we'll make it, I don't know, pinkish. How about red? Red's good. And that doesn't need to be solid either. We can make that a little bit smaller. And then the pointer, we'll do whatever this shape is, the four-sided dice. If you play Dungeons & Dragons, we'll put it on Z, and we'll just make it, I'm going to flip it the other direction by saying it's negative 0.1 in size. We'll make it purple. Purple, nurple. Okay. Then I'm going to just move the whole shebang out a little bit. It's kind of hard to see with this gray, but this blue background lets us see curves a lot better. I'm actually going to change that color. It just isn't visible at all. Why don't we go with green? That'll show up. Yeah? Okay. Sort of. Kind of looks like crap. But I'll live with it. So, okay. So we've got our turntable here. Actually, turntable, I am going to keep it 0. And vertical, I am going to move offset here like this, like that, and then I am going to select my pointer here. And this is where we're going to kind of do the key operation to make this work. So the way this is going to work, it's going to work, I guess, kind of like a laser scanner. And so we're going to scan our head here with a locator, and then we're going to create a curve from that scan. So what I need to do is over here in the little joint here in settings with my pointer selected, I'm going to go down here to constraints. That's what I want, constraints. Have my pointer selected, have Queen Nefertiti selected, and I am going to click surface for the constraint. Boom. Like that. Now you'll notice it placed a locator right on our good queen's chin. Right there. In fact, I'm going to change this locator. We'll just call this laser pointer. Why not? And we'll make this a red dot. And hopefully this visualization, whoops, not that one. Well, yeah, this will make it all worth it once we get this set up here. So we'll just make it a little sphere. You don't have to do this, but I think it helps with the tutorial to make it this shape, and then I'll just make it red. Okay, very good. All right. And so if we look at our constraint, right here, this intersect constraint, its mode is set to closest. We actually want it set to ray. And then we want to set the axis to negative Z. And so that's shooting it out straight ahead. Now, if I move this vertical locator up, it's going to, you'll see that just sort of trace the surface there, right? So it's just shooting a ray out, it's banging into the geometry on Queen Nefertiti, and it's sticking to the surface. So that's pretty sweet. We can use that to our advantage. And what I want to do is just open up my schematic here, and I'm going to drag in my laser pointer right here. And then I'm going to add an array. I'm going to add a locator to array like this. I'm going to plug the locator. Whoops, I want to make sure the purple graph links are visible. And I'm going to plug that graph link into the locator link there. And over here in the locator, I want it set to single. And I want the frame from 0 to, I think my scene is set to 10. We're going to change this in a minute, but just so you see. It goes like that. And then with my turntable, I'm going to set a keyframe on the Y here at 0. And then my vertical, this guy right here that I moved up and down, I'm going to set a keyframe on Y at 0, 0 and 0. And then at 210, I'm going to move this up to kind of the tippity-toppity here. So it just disappears like that. Looks good. And I'm also going to set my turntable to 360 degrees. So you'll see what I've got here is this kind of motion, spinning around. And here in the graph editor, I want to grab both my my vertical and my turntable, both of these that are animated, and I want them to be linear. I don't want them to be nice and smooth. I want them to be linear. So I just turn the curve to linear. That's a quick way to do that. Okay, so if I just drag the timeline here, you'll see the red dots going around. In fact, let me go to my schematic and grab my locators to array node so I can see the indices of the little list of positions that the array is building up here in the viewport. You'll notice I've got a few out here, and it looks like I'm becoming disconnected from the surface there, and so I'm losing my laser pointer there, and it's coming back in the back of the head. So I need to fix that. And I think what's happening is, if I look at the y-axis or the side view here, I'm missing some geometry at the 0 position of the y-axis. So maybe if I just move Queen Nefertiti back a little bit and make sure that she's always got some geometry along that center line there, we should be good. Looks like I've got my line back. Okay, that looks pretty good. So right now, if I select this empty mesh item here, and I can just add a create polygons mesh operation, and I'll just throw that down here in this whole guy down here in the schematic as well, and rename the mesh. We'll just call it noodle, because I guess we're making noodles here, and plug in the locators to array output to the positions on the create locator. And over here in properties for this create polygons, we don't want it fill. Oh, we do want it fill, but we don't want it face. We want it curve. We don't want it closed. We want it open. So we just have that curve there on Queen Nefertiti now. Maybe I can change the shading of our default material just to make that a little more visible on the good queen. Boom. Green. Should be green. Maybe it's not picking up. If you're not getting textures in the viewport, always make sure to see if shader tree is being used. There it is. So yeah, there it is on green right there. I don't know if green's the best. Maybe purple. I don't know. There, that's kind of magenta. That's sort of viewable there. Okay, so, it's being traced along the location of that locator, kind of going up her head, coming back around the front, and then just sort of coming back here. It's coming off the top just a little bit. That's fine. We can always clean that up later. But what we need to do is we need to get more sampling. So right now we just have 210 sample points, and we're only spinning around once. And really, if this is our laser and we're doing a laser scan, we need to rotate around a lot, like a lot. In fact, I'm going to change my frame range here. Let me just hide that, and I don't think I need the schematic open anymore. Well, actually I do, but I'll be there in a second. I'm going to turn my frame range up to like 30,000. 30,000 frames. Big, long animation. 30,000. Okay, it looks good. But I've got to change a couple of things here. Both my turntable and my vertical locators, they need to go all the way to 30,000. So press Z, lowercase z in the viewport to bring in all animated channels and select it. And frame 210's got to be 3,000. And so there it is in the viewport, 30,000. And if we go to the schematic and select our locators to array node, we got to set the end time all the way up to 30,000 as well, so it samples all the way up to 30,000. Did I just put 30,000 or 300,000? And the last thing we need to do is make sure our turntable goes around a lot of times. So not just 360, We need to change this to, I don't know, something like, uh, we'll say we want to go around it 100 times, so times 100. We'll just do times 100 here and really up the number of times our laser pointer spins around our main model there. And you can see that, by the, once that calculates up to 3,600 or 36,000, I'm sorry, degrees of revolution, you can see that it's laying down this curve pretty accurately along Nefertiti there. You got a couple outliers, not many, just a couple we can clean up later. And then you just have to decide, like, is that as many samples as you want? If you want, the radius of the curve to be kind of a thick noodle, then that'll be good enough. If you want even more resolution, more curves there, then we just, double this guy times 2 and let it calculate, and we'll get a curve that's, twice as dense up and down Nefertiti there. So there we go. Quite a bit. It's fairly quick. And so now that we're there, we can really, I'm just going to take my noodle curve here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say freeze mesh operations, duplicate and freeze. So I keep my original one. It just hides it. And I've got my new noodle here. And I just need to clean it up a little bit manually. You can just delete a few of these curves or a few of the vertices on this curve. It's just one curve. So if I delete or move like here, like I may want to move this particular one back. So if I just grab this guy, I can transform him back, or however you want to do it. Let me just kind of look at the top here. Obviously, it's going to be moving kind of slow because we have so many vertices on this curve now, but that's all right. I'll just sort of move this back. You can kind of see how this is going to work in terms of cleaning up a few of these points that get blasted off the surface. So it's probably not a heck of a lot unlike actual laser scanning, where you need to do a little cleanup here. It looks like, I don't know if I was, oh, it looks like she was maybe missing a polygon behind the ears there, or perhaps they were, a good way to fix that maybe just to fix the model. Let's hide my noodle here and actually fix Queen Nefertiti, actually fix the model. It looks like this vertice got moved out of the way. So let me just move this down. Am I actually missing polygons, or are they just flipped? I think they're just flipped, yeah. So let me flip them. F for flip, and those are right. So that should actually just automatically sort of fix itself. If I go back to my original noodle here, it should see those now and be just automatically calculate those new, the new positions with that flipped, and sure enough, there it is. So just a few there to clean up. So again, right click, freeze mesh operations, duplicate and freeze. Got my new noodle here, and I don't need to do all of this interactively. I think I'll just hit pause and clean up a few of these. So really, it's just, I think this may be the only one that's really off, and then the rest I think are just sort of shot off into space there, which I can delete. But let me just push this guy in. I'm going to be a little bit careful. You just want to kind of keep it on all these on the same plane as well, so you don't move anything out of the way. But it looks like these are all just sort of here at the end. So we'll just clean up this little part here, and then we'll be ready to do some rendering. And there we go. After deleting just a couple of points at the top, we've got our Queen Nefertiti laser scan going on here with the help of arrays. If you look over at stats, it should just be one curve, one continuous curve. There it is. And yeah, then you could just kind of play around with it. You can even go in and do a curve rebuild if you want to adjust the sampling spacing again. So it should be pretty even samples the way it was rotating around there. So this actually would look pretty nice as a point cloud. But it's not totally even. There's spaces where the sampling between points is a little bit closer or further apart, which is fine. But you can also go in there and do like a curve rebuild if you want, and sample sort of exactly how every millimeter or so. So if I do a curve rebuild, and here it's just I lose everything with just doing a maximum point count of 50. But if you do exact distance, it'll actually just at 50 millimeters, it's a pretty rough approximation of the queen. But if I increase that or decrease that to like every 5 millimeters, we're going to get a lot more points. But it's going to be pretty dense there. Those are all points, but looks pretty good. And so you could do point cloud animations. You could use this as a replicator source and do something interesting that way. And there's plenty of interesting rendering effects you can do because it is one curve. Let me just get this put in the view of the camera here and maybe do a couple quick renders. Let's see, something along these lines. And let's bring up another viewport here that I'll bring up. Again, I'm going to render this in Octane because it's just a little bit faster than rendering in MODO, but you can also render this in MODO straight off the bat. And actually, the curves do render a little bit more smoothly in MODO. You don't have to do the curve rebuild like you do in Octane. But let's take a look. Make sure you have render curves on, and let's do pretty thin here, maybe like 3 millimeters. We'll just kind of see what this looks like. Wow, that is one dense Queen Nefertiti there. So I can even go, you can see like the resolution that was captured with this. I could maybe bump this down to 0.02 even. Actually 3, what a guess. 3 was maybe the magic number there. All right. So looking at this, you can play around with this a little bit because you can do things like adjust these gradients here, like radius, and I'll just middle click for another keyframe and then drag this down low, and you can see like it's decreasing the radius along the length of the curve. And because this is just one curve from the bottom to the top, we get this sort of fading out effect near the top and still really dense near the bottom. So now I think what I'll do here maybe is turn the good queen back on and sort of push in a little bit, and then maybe reduce. It sort of looks like she's sort of coming out of her wrappings there, almost like mummy wrappings. So maybe I'll play with that shader a little bit, maybe reduce the curve radius a little, like 0.03 maybe. And then, maybe I'll just change this to a nice, shiny, queen-like gold here. So maybe change this octane material to a metallic material, and then turn the diffuse back down to 0, and give it a nice golden color for its specular, not specular map, it's specular color, some sort of nice gold like so. And adjust the roughness a little bit, maybe a little bit rough. It's kind of old gold. And anyway, there we go. Sort of a Queen Nefertiti in her golden wrappings. I don't know. But yeah, it's a lot of fun playing around like this and making this virtual laser scanner. And again, Arrays made this possible. This is not something you'd want to try and make by yourself with some sort of, I don't know, like background constraint and manually placing points. So yeah, enjoy.
Yum, yum!